Hello, welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is Nancy Ross, and Nancy is a licensed clinical social worker, and her interest has always been in helping couples and families realize their goals of healthier family dynamics. Her company is Bauer, Shepherd, and Ross and Associates. As both a mediator and a psychotherapist, she works with individuals and families throughout their entire life cycle, including premarital and marital counseling, in helping them cope more effectively with life challenges. As a co-developer of a new approach to divorce, the collaborative team model, Nancy works as a divorce coach to help couples and their children face the difficult challenges of divorce. She is the co-author of Divorce, a Problem to be Solved, Not a Battle to be Fought and Won. Anyway, numerous articles on divorce, and continues to train professionals in the model both nationally and internationally. So Nancy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks, Michael, for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Anyway, today that we're going to be talking about how a collaborative approach can help make divorce a less painful process. And people may say, a financial show? Why are you talking about, let's just say I like to focus on life events, and divorce certainly has a financial consequence for us. In fact, if you really think about it, folks, financially divorce doesn't make sense. So part of the reason why I would say is, Maybe you can find a way out. Maybe you'll even find a way to work things out and stay together. And that's part of what Nancy helps people with. All right. So Nancy, what is the difference between the collaborative law and an interdisciplinary team collaborative divorce approach?
You mean aside from being a mouthful?
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah.
Okay, yeah, right. Well, collaborative law essentially is an agreement between two lawyers not to go to court.
Okay.
And that agreement extends to their clients. So just a little history to kind of put it in context.
Okay.
About 1992, a colleague of ours, Stu Webb, in Minneapolis, had the bright idea that he wanted to work with a family and not go to court. He was a litigator, family law litigator. I might mention also Stu was a Zen Buddhist. So the two weren't fitting together. So that's probably why he had the idea, and called a friend and said, could we make an agreement not to go to court? Each represent our clients, give them advice, which has come to be known as collaborative law, and yet stay out of court. And it worked so well, and the friend agreed, which kind of was surprising because back then it was almost an anathema for lawyers to think about forbidding their clients to go to court as they looked at it.
Well, most lawyers probably look at themselves, or many of them, particularly, again, if they're litigators.
They're litigators.
Yeah, if they're litigators, they look at themselves as warriors. So
Yes. Warriors doing battle on behalf of their clients.
Yes.
Which for many people in the litigating field is needed. So yeah, I don't want this to be any way heard as litigation doesn't have its place. It absolutely does. But I also have a bias, and the bias is that families don't really belong in court for the most part. And that you asked about collaborative interdisciplinary team approach.
Yes.
Well, we looked at what Stu did, and it was working really well, except that lawyers don't really know how to use techniques like coaching or deep listening or helping couples shift and change and really hear each other so that they become better couples and parents going forward. Even if they're divorced, they're still a family.
Yes.
So coaches do that. And then the financial part, which we looked at that and thought, why should there be two lawyers sending financial information back and forth, charging by the minute, when one neutral financial could do that much better, they were skilled in it, that's what they do for a living. So we created the role of a neutral financial professional on the team. Call him the financial specialist. And that has become probably one of the most important roles on our team. So far we have 2 coaches. In other words, each couple has a coach.
Yes.
That person works with that client to help them maybe articulate what they want to be heard in a different way, to be taken seriously. And I think maybe most importantly, to weather the ups and downs and the stresses of divorce, which are pretty horrible.
Yes.
So far, 2 coaches, neutral financial. We're missing an important person, the child specialist. So in our model, in addition to the 2 lawyers, which are on board already, we have a child specialist. And that person operates as the voice of the children. We did that because children don't have a voice in divorce. They are totally left out. And yet they're so impacted.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't their idea to lose their family.
No.
Or to move or to share time in 2 separate homes.
Right.
So they need a place, not their parents per se, because that puts them in a tough position. So they need a neutral person who's going to represent them. And that person tells parents what the kids said, what they're worried about, but it keeps the kids out of the fray.
So they're not in the room, but their voice is brought into the room.
Yes, and that's important that they're not in the room. They get a separate private session with a child specialist who's a trained mental health professional, licensed. And that person finds out, how are they adjusting to the divorce? What would they like their parents to hear? And in that, just that one piece, what would you like your mom or your dad to hear? The child feels, look, I have something here. I mean something. My view is important. I can make a difference.
Yeah, I would think that would take a pretty specialized person to get in because, well, one is to really get the child to speak.
Exactly.
A lot of them are afraid to bring out. Well, one is that they may. Part of the reason that this divorce may be happening is because of abuse or other problems that are going on with the children.
Or they may have been the center, you're right.
Yeah,
they may have been the center or felt they were the center of the argument. And they may even think they caused it.
Well, and a lot of times they do, as human beings, in some ways it's good, in some ways not so good, that we can take responsibility for our situation. But on the other hand, we can blame ourselves when really it's not us.
It's not warranted.
Yeah.
No.
And so anyway, but to get those feelings out and so on can be really important, and it may go beyond the divorce itself, but
we
as
hope
far
it
as the,
does.
as far as the counseling that needs to happen.
Because one of the things that keeps children silent, even though they have a great relationship with their parents, in divorce that changes. Because why would you say something that you can see on your mom's face causes a lot of pain? Why would you speak out if you think that's going to cause more problems? I mean, what if you say something about having a really good time with dad and you see that look on mom's face? Most children just shut down right there. They learn very quickly what they can say and not say. Yeah,
it's hard. And the parents, in many cases that I've heard, I haven't been in the middle of it, but, play the kids.
Good. Yes.
One against the other and so on. And so, and of course, or they just unload on the kids.
Yes, exactly.
And so it's very, very difficult.
Well, and that's what the coaches are for.
Yeah.
because we work with the parents. The child specialist stays out of that. They're only there for the kids.
Yes.
That's really important because it's the coaches that work with the parents to have them understand you're pulling your child in the middle or you're hurting your kids with your argument, with your struggle. And that's what we do. We shift them out of that kind of divorce story about either being a victim or it's the other person's fault, and help them create a different kind of story about being good co-parents.
Okay. So we may get back into some of this in a moment, but some people have heard of mediation.
Right.
Okay, and so
right.
they may wonder, well, is this like mediation, or or how is this different from mediation?
I think of mediation, and by the way, I'm a mediator. I
Okay.
really love what I do.
Okay.
And it's different, you're right. And the difference is that as a mediator, I have to be neutral. In other words, as a coach, I have the person I form a relationship with, and I can give them direct feedback. I can kind of take their side temporarily while I really understand them, and I can challenge them, just like a coach does. If I'm a mediator, I listen to the couple, I facilitate their dialogue, I'm concerned about how they hear each other, create goals, so there's a lot of similarities. Coaches create goals too. But the mediation usually, we're really trying to get agreements in place and agreements that both of them agree to. In other words, I'm not imposing the agreements as a mediator. I'm facilitating their conversation and guiding them. And I'm a mediator to help with their communications or to help them co-parent. As a coach and having the entire team in place, our goals shift from just getting them through the divorce and having good communications to really helping them create a lasting co-parenting relationship. And you alluded to that earlier, that this isn't just about the divorce, this is about giving them a concept, a vision, so that going forward, they can be better parents, maybe better parents than they ever were partners in their marriage. And that's our job. So we really have, I think, a vision that goes beyond. We can be aligned, and that has advantages, can have disadvantages. So it's a different process. And in the team process, the client gets to choose what resources, what services that person wants or needs. In other words, if I want to know more about my finances, I'm a wife, stereotypically. This is true still. A lot of women really aren't involved in the day-to-day finances, or they may pay the bills. They don't really understand stock options or 401ks or how you invest. And I have a case right now where the woman says, I have no idea what we have, period. So having a financial on board that can educate, that's their specialty. They can get into complexities and make them simple in ways that no one else on the team can. Not the lawyers who sometimes think they can, or certainly the coaches who know they can't. But the financial is trained to do that, so we get better outcomes.
Okay.
So it's education, it's the specialty of the individuals involved, it's the luxury of having time to be with that person, to coach them. And the lawyers play a crucial role. The lawyers are there to give advice, to give support. But I think what I count on the lawyers to do most is really support the team, because they have a lot of authority and their knowledge about the legal system is invaluable.
Well, in the end, they have to come up with some sort of agreement, a written agreement related to things like property settlement and and that sort of stuff. So the lawyers obviously still play an important role.
Huge role.
But on the other hand, to try to facilitate communication and so on, So in many cases, when you get to divorce, the people are at an impasse. They're at a place where
Yes,
they're having difficulty getting through their issues,
that's right.
and really communicating them with each other.
Right. Have you ever seen a financial issue that didn't have some emotions attached to it?
Well, how about any issue?
Any issue has emotions attached,
Yeah,
but particularly in divorce, when people are scared and they're uninformed sometimes, or they're in different places. One wants the divorce, the other one doesn't. So these all play out and create the tension and the emotions in the divorce. So then it's up to us as a team, not just the coaches, but the whole team, to help them manage that.
Do you find sometimes, and maybe you can, because you have experience with these things. You're doing this as your occupation and so on.
Every day, yes.
So what are you seeing? Are any people actually resolving, or is it a small minority? In other words, do they actually sort of, you help them to get through their issues, and so they're actually able to get back together again? Or is that just sort of a remote hope?
It's happened, but it's rare. And
Okay.
I have a client right now who's just beginning the divorce. She doesn't want the divorce.
Yes.
And the husband's very clear that that's the only option. So she's hoping very much that this process will get them back together. I've seen it happen, but it's been a few years, so it's been a while. And I told her that while it can, you cannot hope for that. You can just be the best person you can be going through this. And if that changes something, if you learn to communicate in a different way, if you really learn to understand each other in ways you didn't when you were married, possibly it can happen. But this is a divorce process. It's not a reconciliation process.
Yeah. So one thing I've heard, and again, I haven't been there. Knock on wood, my wife and I just celebrated our 45th anniversary.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. So we're
you're not going to give me any business at all, are you?
Maybe a client. But anyway, so fortunately we sort of stuck things out. And I think that, well, anyway, I don't want to get into the philosophy
right,
of that.
lots of reasons for that, right.
But what I've heard from some people who have been divorced and then they get into another relationship is that they felt that their previous relationship was a learning experience, so that then they could bring what they learned forward to try to make their next relationship better. And it seems to me that part of what you're doing by helping people with this, again, facilitating their communication and so on, is maybe helping them in that process.
It's so good you caught that, because so few people do. I think it all the time. I think the mistakes I see people making, and of course I've got my therapy hat on as well, looking at this, and the mistakes I see them making, we can help them correct those and be different and experience it. And then by establishing a healthier relationship, they learn what not to do. Mm-hmm. So they are more prepared. And I think there's another part to that. They don't let go of the relationship, usually in this process, with a lot of anger. They may let go with sadness and regret, and they may also hold out hope for the future. But they let go with a deeper understanding. And there's a lot of focus on how can we be better parents. Mm-hmm. In fact, in our first coaches meeting, we have them create what we call their mission statement for co-parenting. And that can be their hopes and dreams of what they'd like to be in the future going forward. And then it's up to us as coaches and, in fact, the whole team to help them realize those goals. So they are prepared for another relationship, to parent better, to move on with their lives in a healthier way. And to me, that's a kind of gift back to society, because the divorces in court, I think, create schisms, anger, They tear families apart in different ways, and they create kids who are struggling, and we have to deal with the next generation.
So as we were talking about this, something occurred to me. So for this collaborative approach, is it necessary that the couple have children, or is that like the most common situation?
It's probably what brings people in, but
Okay.
we have a lot of couples getting divorced, including same-sex couples, because
Yes.
it's rather perfect for same-sex couples, as you can imagine. We can have whatever the gender is, we each can have their coach that they're comfortable with. We can address their particular issues. We have lawyers who specialize in that. So they get to maintain their relationship, because the important part there is they go back to their communities and their friends. And they can go back in a way that maintains those connections. And I think that's really crucial. And for couples who just don't have children and kind of want to go their own way, they tell me they choose it because they want to let go with respect and often consideration. And many still care for each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have this image of divorce that people hate each other.
The War of the Roses.
Oh yeah, the War of the Roses. And it can look like that sometimes. But actually most people really want to let go in a way that maintains their integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can offer them that.
Okay. The collaborative divorce model sounds expensive because we've got all these players that are involved.
Right.
Is it?
It's not cheap.
Yeah.
That's true. And sometimes people say, well, I'll just get a mediator, that'll be cheaper. And it can be. The problem with that is, I think what we bring that minimizes the cost on a number of levels is we bring the expertise of each discipline. So we've got the lawyers, the legal, you've got the coaches, the mental health, and you've got the financial. So they're getting the benefit of that education. We actually teach people how to do their own work so that they use less of the team. We often have the lawyers kind of, and they offer this, by the way, to kind of stand back and let the coaches and financial do their work, which is less expensive. And if you think about it, even, especially in litigation, it's hugely less expensive than litigation. And we have the statistics to prove that. And in fact, if we see a case going on and becoming too expensive, we feel like we haven't done our job. We failed the couple. So it's more expensive for the most part than, say, mediation, but mediations can go on forever and become very costly. It's not like they're always inexpensive.
Okay. Probably have about 3 minutes left. Let's see here. What public educational services are available?
Oh, there's so many now, but I think the main one I'd like your listeners to your viewers, I guess, to hear about is every Saturday in San Jose, there's a free class for 3 hours given by a lawyer, a mental health, and a financial. And it is all about your options in divorce. It is not given with any bias. We just say, here are your options, here's the pros and cons of each, and they can get that information by going on nocourt.org and looking up divorce options.
So it's nocourt.org.
Correct. It's kind of memorable, I
Okay.
think, to remember.
Good.
No court.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So there is this class of it, but it's basically a way to get some information and then maybe to help making a decision whether this is the path that you want to try.
Absolutely. And it frees people up to talk about it. Couples often come together to get the information. And I don't know another place or another way for that amount of information that you can walk away with some clarity. Because I think what process you choose is the most important decision.
Okay. We probably have, it's about 2 minutes. So maybe you'd like to throw out some final thoughts related to this for people to think about.
Well, first I want to thank you
Oh,
for
it's my
giving me
pleasure.
this opportunity because strangely enough, we've been around now for about 25 years,
Uh-huh.
and yet we're not getting the word out, I think, in the way we should or could, because many people have never heard of collaborative divorce.
Uh-huh.
And finding places to be able to tell people, here's what it's like. Here's what it's like if you choose a litigated divorce. Here's what it's like if you choose mediation or do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what it's like if you choose a collaborative process to get the kind of support, education, and guidance so that you make really good decisions that last.
Uh-huh.
That's our goal. We have this saying, making decisions that are durable.
Mm-hmm.
And I go beyond that and making relationships and co-parenting that are durable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the whole thing is very challenging. We saw with one family, my wife's family, and the kids, it was like they just went crazy.
They do sometimes.
And they were teenagers, and so it was,
Even
so
worse.
So they were doing sort of inappropriate things, and
Sure, they were
it's a
acting out.
shame.
What they're doing is
Yeah.
acting out pain,
Yeah.
confusion, fear. Sometimes they're acting out the battle between their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So why would we want to continue doing that?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Okay. Thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, you're welcome, Michael. Thank
Okay.
you for having me.
Okay, folks, hope you found this an interesting conversation. See you next time on Financial Insider Weekly.